Okay, so today we are looking at a transcript from the Chicks on the Right YouTube channel. It's all about their take on Candace Owens and the whole Charlie and Erica Kirks situation.
Right, specifically the part where Owens allegedly laughed at a murder conspiracy theory for clicks.
Exactly. So let's just get right into the mechanics of how they build that argument. The material is, I think, really effective at setting up a stark moral contrast, but it just completely dilutes its own impact by mixing really substantive criticism with pretty trivial complaints.
That's a heavy opener. I mean, I read it, and I definitely felt the weight of the accusation, about the murder comments. But you think the trivial stuff is actually getting in the way?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the kitchen sink approach. They just throw everything in. The hosts are jumping back and forth between this incredibly grave accusation
that Candace Owens laughed at the idea that Erica Kirk killed her husband.
Yes, that, and then, like a second later, they're mocking her for mispronouncing the word revelations as relevations.
Right, I remember that part.
And you get this whiplash. 1 minute, it's, moral horror. The next, it's giggling over a slip of the tongue. It just flattens the whole critique. If everything is a scandal, then nothing is really a scandal.
Okay, but let me push back on that a little bit. It's a personality-driven show, right? So isn't pointing out a silly mistake like revelations just a way to, build that rapport with their audience? It's low-hanging fruit, sure, but it can be funny. Does it really do that much damage to the serious argument?
In another context, maybe not. But here, yes, it absolutely damages it. Think of it like a legal strategy.
Okay.
If you're a prosecutor trying to convince a jury that the defendant is this dangerous, calculating manipulator, you don't spend 20 minutes making fun of their bad haircut.
Fair enough.
It makes you look petty. And worse, it makes the jury question your judgment on the big stuff. So when they pivot from, she's exploiting a death, to, she can't pronounce words, they're basically giving the listener an out.
An out?
Yeah, an out to just say, oh, they're just haters nitpicking everything. And then they dismiss the serious evidence right along with the silly stuff.
That's a really good point. It's about preserving your own credibility. If you nitpick the small stuff, you seem less objective on the big stuff. So what's the fix? Do they just delete the funny part?
You have to separate the arguments by weight. It's about structure. You group all the heavy character evidence, the timeline investigation, that Frank tweet, the clicks quote, you put that all in one serious block.
That's your core argument?
That's your ammunition. And then you have a choice. You either cut the mockery about her pronunciation entirely, or you move it somewhere completely separate, so it's not undermining the moral high ground. You just can't ask an audience to feel moral outrage and petty glee in the same breath.
So walk me through that. In the script, what would that actually look like?
Okay, let's take the clicks comment. The source material has this really specific, damaging quote, where Owens apparently says, I can't wait for the clicks on this.
Right after the murder accusation discussion. Yeah.
That's the smoking gun. That should be the anchor. The hosts need to just linger there. Analyze the level of cynicism it takes to say something like that.
Because that quote really proves the intent behind it all.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with the part where they mock her for not knowing how to pronounce revelations. If I were editing this, I'd say, cut the revelations seg. Just get rid of it.
Entirely?
Entirely. Mispronouncing a word doesn't support a claim that someone is, malevolent, but asking for a tip line to track a guy's movements and joking about clicks from a murder theory, that absolutely supports the claim. By cutting the fluff, the serious evidence just hits so much harder.
It's addition by subtraction.
It is. It reminds me of that old advice, kill your darlings. The joke might get a laugh, but it just kills the tension they've built.
Which leads us into how that tension is delivered, I guess. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it.
Precisely. The use of hyperbolic language and just loose conversational fillers really undermines the objective weight of the evidence they're presenting. It makes the speakers sound more reactive than authoritative.
I struggled with this one a bit when I was reading. There is a lot of emotion, which, given the subject matter, that's understandable. Are you saying they shouldn't be emotional?
No, not at all.
This is YouTube commentary, not the BBC Evening News. High energy usually wins.
It's not about removing the emotion. It's about controlling it so the audience feels it, instead of just hearing the host scream it. The weakness here is how they immediately label her.
With things like stupid or a nightmare or
a demon. They use that one a lot. And then you have this disjointed rhythm from all the oh my God. Like it is, I swear.
So it feels more like they're just venting rather than making a structured critique.
Exactly. And when you call someone a demon before you've even fully laid out the evidence for why they're behaving that way, just sound biased. The listener stops processing the facts and starts processing the host's outrage instead.
Right, it puts up a barrier. If I'm a skeptic and I hear she's a demon, my guard immediately goes up. I start thinking, okay, settle down.
And you miss the evidence.
But is there a risk that if they go too clinical, they lose their brand? Their audience expects a certain amount of fire from them.
There's a middle ground, though. You can be fiery without being imprecise. The suggestion here is to just tighten up the vocabulary and let the so-called villain incriminate herself with her own words before you pass judgment.
Dial back the adjectives, dial up the verbs.
Yes, describe the action. Don't just label the person.
Okay, so give me an example. How do you rewrite she is a nightmare without losing the punch?
All right, so instead of saying she is on the case, this woman is just a nightmare, which is vague, look at the facts they have. They should describe the specific invasive nature of the action.
Just state what she did.
Yeah, say something like, Owens is publicly requesting sightings of Charlie Kirk in Scottsdale on specific dates to build a timeline. That's chilling. It sounds like a private investigator or a stalker. That specific detail carries so much more weight than the word nightmare ever could.
Huh. That actually gave me goosebumps. Stating the facts clearly makes her sound more dangerous than calling her names does.
Exactly. And another example is their reaction to the Frank tweet. The transcript has, I was like, there's no way. Oh my God. It's a total throwaway reaction.
Right. It tells me the host is shocked, but it doesn't tell me why I should be.
So they need to articulate the dissonance. Instead of just, oh my God, say, we're looking at an image of just uproarious laughter. This reaction, her throwing her head back laughing, it creates this specific jarring dissonance because the topic being discussed is the murder of a woman's husband.
That explains the horror. It moves from name-calling to actual analysis.
It treats the audience like they're smart. And speaking of how you handle these things, we have to talk about the structure. There's a moment in this transcript that just, wow, it made me physically flinch when I read it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I was reading along, getting invested in this really heavy, somber discussion about a funeral, and then bam.
Bamboo pajama?
The pajamas, yeah.
The transition between the emotional climax of the content and the commercial break is so abrupt, it creates this just unintentional dissonance.
It's a huge error in structure.
The transcript moves from this highly emotional quote by Jeremy Boring about a funeral, describing Erica Kirk as the most important human being on planet Earth, directly into this super jovial ad read for Cozy Earth pajamas.
The host literally goes from saying, how many people has Candace brought to Christ? 0, to, but first I need to show off my PJs.
It feels mercenary.
But I have to play devil's advocate for a second. Podcasts' ad slots can be, contractually locked. They might have had to put the ad there.
But even if the timing is locked, the transition isn't. You cannot just jump cut from a eulogy to a sales pitch. It undercuts the sincerity of everything you just spent 10 minutes building. It creates this mirror image where the critic looks just as cynical as the person they're critiquing.
That's the danger zone.
They're accusing Owens of using tragedy for clicks, but then it looks like they're using a tragedy to pivot to a sponsorship.
And you lose the audience instantly if they feel that.
So the suggestion here is vital. You have to use a palate cleanse, a little segment, or even just a distinct pause before the ad read. Or better yet, restructure the episode so the ad comes before the emotional trib. You just can't bridge those two topics with, but first.
I like the idea of a palate cleanser, just like a moment to acknowledge the shift in tone.
Or even better, just move the blocks around. Let's think of some concrete ways to restructure it. Option A, put the Cozy Earth ad right after the Revelations mockery. Remember that bit?
Yeah, it was much lighter.
It's lighter, it's about a funny clip, it's about language. Transitioning from laughing at a mispronunciation to talking about comfy pajamas is a much more natural slide. Then, after the ad, you pivot to the serious Jeremy Boring clip about the funeral.
That makes so much sense. You group the light commercial stuff together and you protect the heavy moral stuff in its own block.
And option B, if they absolutely cannot change the order, is to insert a real segue. Instead of just jumping, say something like, we're going to take a moment to step away from this heavy topic to thank our sponsors. When we return, we'll discuss the funeral.
It acknowledges the awkwardness instead of ignoring it.
It tells the listener, I know this is weird, bear with me. It's about emotional safety for the audience. You can't bring them to a funeral and then snap your fingers and transport them to a slumber party.
ideally you just fix it in the edit.
Right. But okay, moving on. There's one last piece to this puzzle. This is a critique of a video, but we're reading the transcript, and I noticed something was missing. The material relies really heavily on third-party descriptions of visual evidence without actually describing the primary source for the audience.
This is the blind listener problem. I found myself trying to picture what that Frank tweet looked like or what was in that funny little clip, but I had to rely completely on the host's reactions.
That's the weakness. They talk about a screen capture and a funny little clip, but the audience is left with the host's incredulity. Phrases like, "I could not believe" was really, truly in the context, tell us how the host feels, but not what the host sees.
Yeah, it's a huge gap. For example, they say the guest suggested Erica killed Charlie and then Candace laughed. And the host says, that's exactly what she was laughing at. But is that connection really established for someone who hasn't seen the video?
No, it is not. And that's a problem, because the whole argument hinges on that visual. If I can't see the timing of the laugh, I have to take the host's word for it. The suggestion here is to basically employ alt-text style narration.
You mean like describe the picture?
Exactly. You have to paint the picture before you critique the painting. Describe the visual setup. They mention Owens and a guest doing a selfie thing, but they need to be more precise. Describe the framing, the body language, before you analyze it.
Give me a concrete example of how to do that.
Okay, for the Frank tweet, before you even react to it, just read the text of the tweet out loud. Candace Owens laughing after her guest suggested that Erica Kirk killed Charlie. Then describe the image.
The photo shows Candace with her head thrown back, mouth open, something like that.
Yes, in a state of, uncontrolled laugh, then you give your reaction. That grounds the listener in the reality of what you're seeing.
That's so much clearer. And what about the Jeremy Boring clip? They mention it's from the Trigonometry podcast.
Right, which I assume is trigonometry. But for a listener who doesn't follow all the Daily Wire drama, Jeremy Boring is just some name. The segment loses all its power if you don't know who he is.
Is he a random YouTuber? A friend? Who knows?
So they need to just briefly explain Jeremy Boring is the co-CEO of the Daily Wire and Candace's former boss. That one sentence of context explains why his opinion on Erica Kirk carries so much weight. It explains that this isn't just internet drama.
It's a rebuke from the man who used to sign her paychecks.
That changes everything. Without that context, it's just opinion. With it, it's an indictment. You have to assume the audience is smart, but you can't assume they have a wiki page open in front of them.
So we've covered a lot. It feels like this piece has really strong bones. The moral outrage is justified, but the execution is just slipping on these little structural banana peels.
That's a great way to put it. The core is definitely there. So let's just recap the 4 main areas to help tighten this up.
All right.
First, argument hierarchy. We need to prioritize the really heavy evidence, like the Clicks quote and the murder accusation, over the mockery about mispronunciation.
Don't let the petty stuff distract from the profound.
Exactly. Second, tonal discipline. Replace the hyperbole like demon and all the filler words with precise analysis of the behavior, like the tip line request. Let the facts drive the outrage.
Show, don't just tell.
Third, structural integrity. That ad placement is critical. Move the Cozy Earth ad away from the funeral discussion to avoid that jarring tonal whiplash. Group the commerce with the comedy, not the tragedy.
Right.
And finally, descriptive completeness. The hosts have to clearly describe the visual cues, the selfie promo, the specific laughter, the text of the tweets before they offer their reactions.
So the audience can see what they see.
This was a really fascinating look at how to critique a media personality effect. To the listener who submitted this, you have a powerful argument here. It just needs focus. Please implement these structural and tonal shifts and send it back to us. We would love to see the next iteration.